Hello, and welcome to the Delicious Recipe here on UPRN 107.7 FM. Or are we still there? Oh, I guess we're still getting feedback here again. Okay, maybe I'll just move down this direction here. You can still hear you, eh, Marty?
Hello.
And we are here at Delicious Recipe. The title of this episode there tonight is Solo Cups, and got my friend here, Marty, there coming in as being a guest with my on the show. And you know what? Let's start this one off. There is that this is going to be like a potpourri, a story of about every different little thing there. Let's talk about should Montreal have been in the finals of the Stanley Cup? You go, Marks.
Well, I think that's a good question. If you look at their standing, they finished 18th place in the overall standings in the regular season. Any other year, the top 16 teams make the playoffs. But with the closures of everything and having the border closed, Montreal was in the Canadian division and was able to qualify for the playoffs, even though the Rangers and the Dallas Stars both had more points. So I don't know.
So, do you think that uh, were they a good match for Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay deserved to be there, right? They're defending Stanley Cup champions. And then you have Montreal that sort of snuck their way in through the back door, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, I could see where you're going with this because they actually had a tough series versus Toronto, and Toronto, well, they didn't play their best, so they got by. And then they had a much easier time versus Winnipeg. So, Canadian Division champs, but what got me is how they got by the Golden Knights. I thought that would be no match, but I was proved wrong, and we have Montreal in the finals.
Okay, and then, so what comes up here now? I've been hearing a lot about trades there with Seattle. Okay, and there's a lot of Canadians, I guess, that are going to another American team. Is that true?
It could be. Seattle's allowed to select one Canadian, Montreal Canadian, that is, and they left Carey Price up for the taking for Seattle. So the big question is tomorrow, will Seattle, in fact, take Carey Price in the expansion draft? He's probably our best Canadian goaltender for international hockey, but now with his big contract, and there is just some news about a long-term injury now for Carey Price. So is that a real injury, or is that kind of there saying take Carey Price, but if you do, he might be able not be playing for a year. So we'll have an interesting draft for Seattle tomorrow.
Right. So no, this is another interesting fact that sort of I saw that came up there during this time because I was watching Sportsnet there with Steve Dangle. I was listening to his commentary and stuff like that. There was more Canadians on Tampa Bay than there was on Montreal. It was like a 12-3, something like that.
Yeah, that just because you're from Montreal doesn't mean that your players are from Canada. You had quite a few American-born players. You had lots of European-born players. So, and Tampa Bay did, in fact, have a lot of Canadians, which probably proves still that Canadian players will bring home the cup, whether they're playing in an American market.
And then you had on Montreal, you had a Stahl from Thunder Bay, and what did you think of his performance in the playoffs? Did you think it was lacking?
Well, he was brought in for the run. He was traded, and he actually played. You know, he wasn't playing a lot of minutes. He's getting up there in age now, but he was an important piece. He helped them. He played on the fourth line on a grit line, and he did pretty good. He almost brought the cup back to Thunder Bay, but just one round too short.
There you go. So the playoffs there ended. If people aren't aware, it ended up in 5 games, and that was it. And it was a blowout the first game. what was it, 8-3 or something like that, or eight. Then it was like 3-1, and then 4-2, and then I don't know. It was just
Montreal won one game in overtime.
Right. And what do you think about overtime wins?
Well, I don't mind overtime in the playoffs. It'll go on forever till someone scores. I don't like regular season over 3-on-3s, more like a shinny hockey, 3-on-3. And then the shootout, well, that's, I guess, a way to have a winner each game, but we don't see the NBA or MLB having a home run contest or a 3-point shooting contest to decide who wins.
Right. This even comes into the whole thing. There's the whole part about playoffs and stuff like that. And when you get into dealing with baseball, extra innings. I remember a game back in the 80s. I went and saw Toronto play in Toronto, and it went to 27 innings. It was just like the game was never ending. So that's the whole thing when it comes down to overtime shootouts. I'm not a fan of shootouts. So how about you?
No, not at all. It's nice for the young people so the guys could showcase some skill and all, but in professional hockey, people are working hard to get those 2 points. And after working hard for 60 up to 65 minutes, including overtime, 3 shooters to decide an extra point. I don't know. It's not what I like anyway.
Right. That comes down to the whole part there about when you're playing with sports, right? You want it to be a team win, not an individual win where somebody's okay. Well, now we have like somebody that goes out there and can pick the corners and hey, well, guess what? We just won, and you did nothing the whole game.
That is true. One player, just because he's skilled, he might have not had his best game. He hardly got any ice time, but he'll come out there and he can be the hero as he scores in the shootout.
Okay, so now that hockey's done, what's the next sport there you're all interested in there, Marks?
Well, I'm interested in Major League Baseball now that the Cup is finally over. It's handed to Tampa Bay, so I'm excited about the Blue Jays heading back to Toronto next weekend. They'll finally be leaving Buffalo, which they were a good host. Thanks, Buffalo. But let's get the Blue Jays back in Toronto where they belong.
Mm-hmm. So now we still have that C-19 there going on there. So when do you think that there's going to be any time that you'd be looking about going down and seeing a sports thing? Because I know Rockfest is pretty much done right now. We can't go down to that one. That's for music concerts, but sports thing, what's the big one you're looking at?
Well, I'm still looking at the schedule and waiting to see what will happen. I know that the Blue Jays, of course, are allowed to play in Toronto and the American teams can come up and play.
Mm-hmm.
And as of, I think it's August 7th, Americans can now enter Canada, but the U.S. still hasn't made their own choice yet and announced what will happen for Canadians to cross the land border going into the United States. So I'm still waiting, but I'm hoping maybe to go to the States to see a baseball game or two. If not, we'll have to wait for football and see the Vikings.
There you go. The thing was sort of amazing there that I sort of watched there is that when you looked at watching even the playoffs with the NHL, where Tampa Bay, like their arena was almost full, and then you looked at Montreal, and it was like selective seating and very spacing, I guess you would say, in there. And that's sort of this big sort of a difference we've sort of noticed over since this past 18 months has sort of gone on, is where a lot of things have opened up in the U.S., and they haven't opened up in Canada here, right? Like I say, we're up here in Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario, Lake Superior, part of the 5 Great Lakes. We talked about this there the other night there about how massive actually Canada is. Ontario alone is bigger than Texas, and it's just sort of amazing how the U.S. has sort of opened up a lot more than what we have done here.
Yeah, like so. For instance, you were talking about Rockfest, and I watched some videos. It was in Cadott, Wisconsin. It was one of the first major like 3-day festivals to go on
Mm-hmm.
back, and then there was a lot of great bands playing there. But unfortunately, I couldn't go. But they're there. Apparently, that was the first time ever that all the campgrounds were sold out. I guess people were finally ready to get back to her, and everybody had a good time. And already for 2022, they have sold out all VIP and all VIP lawn chairs. So, you know, I'm hoping Canada will soon follow. I just seen on the news they had the Calgary Stampede. So Alberta, they opened up. They had 50% capacity. They still
Mm-hmm.
had over 1 million people attend over the week or 2 weeks long that the Stampede is, and they said it was a success and it went through with no hiccups. So I think that's proof that we could start getting back to normal in Canada.
Well, I totally agree. It seems like there's sort of this lagging that we're doing here. I'm not sure whether it's a power control, because we do have an election that's coming up in September, and they're trying to push this off. And then if people out there don't understand, there with Canada, there was a part that was being done by certain parliamentary members there, is that they wanted to push the election till the following year, because then they would be grandfathered in, that they'd be pensioned out for life. And that's sort of a really, I use the word retarded many times, and I think that is retarded, that all of a sudden that you're going to have parliamentary members that just want to push an election over so they get paid taxpayer money, and they've done things that you could actually say that are questionable. They didn't stand up for the people. They didn't do a lot of things there. And I've talked many times here about Mr. Pink Pants, Justin Trudeau, and his illustrious dancing band there. And his, but the thing is, though, is that it sort of gets into this part there, is that when you're looking at what has happened over the past 2 years, and I think a lot of people there that are listening to mainstream media and getting their information from there, they're not getting the full picture of what's being affected to them. How do you figure that things have been affected to you there? That well, you actually had one of your daughters there that couldn't even go for the Canadian team there because of what happened with the shutdown.
Yeah, so I could watch American TV, and of course, the northern states, they all had a shutdown, started up again, had a shutdown. But now I have two daughters, and I guess it's happened lots. One daughter, she just graduated, didn't have to me, a proper graduation. She had to like accept a diploma in the school gym by herself, socially distanced, only one family at a time. That's a big part of life. Grade your high school graduation. There was no prom, no big ceremony at the auditorium, so that's affected big time. And then my other daughter, she's a pretty talented hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
She's got aspirations one day to hopefully play for Team Canada, but she's had many camps canceled. She had to go to She was on her way to Ottawa just before this all happened to try and get selected for the Ontario Summer Games.
Right.
That was canceled, got pushed back to 2021, which was canceled again. And now Ontario is having a camp for their selection of their team in early September around. But the thing is, my daughter now hasn't really played hockey in front of any scouts or any other representatives for a year and a half.
Right.
I'm wondering, since we live in Thunder Bay, it's hard to get seen as is. So I want to know how they do select their roster. Is it how they played basically 2 years ago? Like being in Thunder Bay, are we at a disadvantage? We can't travel. So it's really affected, my life and many others too. But I just can't see why you'd want to suspend kids' activity for their well-being and mental health. We need, kids need to get out and keep rolling on. It's affecting their mental health and physical activity. I'm hoping we could get back to normal ASAP.
Right. And I guess another part there too is that she actually misses out on their age group too, right?
Yes. it's like their age group when you're 15 years old. It's your first year of basically, and we have like in Ontario for the boys, they have their minor midgets the same as the girls. That's when they have a big camp for all the 15-year-olds, where they get a good look at them, and you get evaluated from there whether you start. And you can there's two Team Ontario teams which you could play for, and so it's hard. I feel for her, and I just that she's still working hard. So I just she keeps on working and keeps on going.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole part. I guess out of this is that the repercussions of what government sort of have done there and putting stipulations in and doing things, whether they thought it was in their best interest or maybe they thought it was going to get them reelected. That's sort of a dicey sort of question to sort of go through there. And like we say here on the Delicious Recipe, we just throw lots of things in the pot and we see how they taste at the end. Some people will like it, some people might not like the taste of it, but I guess when it gets important into your, we say this, your globe, your sort of your bubble of your life, and things get affected like that, other people don't see it because they're not in the same sort of doing the same sort of things that other people are doing. And it's just sort of a sad in a way there that someone misses out on a huge opportunity that could probably have done globally things for them. Like it's a real sort of a shame, but you can't really can you blame how things were done? I don't know. That's a topic that many people don't want to go and step into. I think you can. I think things were done poorly and mismanaged hugely. I think the whole part there when you have a store and they say what you can and can't buy in a store, but you're still in the store, that just seems retarded to me. And I'm going to use the word retarded, and Dell's taking back the word retarded. I'm bringing it back into the vernacular that everybody should say that retarded, because 2 years, 18 months have been retarded. What do you think there, Marks?
Well, yes, and again, you were saying stuff about our government because of our levels of government. Not only do we have, as you say, our Mr. Pink Pants, our leader, he only has regulations over federal events, which is only what he can do. Then we have our provincial government, who seems to have more power. But in Canada, instead of just having the two main parties, we have three parties.
Yep.
So then it doesn't matter what our premier does. We have the leader of the opposition, and once she's on the news and starts yapping and this and that, it just creates a big problem. Now he can't do this, he can't do that, he'll get flack. You can't reopen, there's so many cases still going on. Oh wait, why aren't you opening yet? The case count's going down. So like we should maybe, Canadian politics is a tough thing. Should we go to just 50%? Yes or no? You want liberal or conservative and the third and fourth parties? But yeah, like you don't know. It's hard. I know, but like I'm really disappointed. It's all levels of government keeping kids out of school. Then when they do go to school, no extracurricular activities. They're all bummed out. Kids are, it's a big problem here.
Well, now they're talking about there now, and I was just watching there earlier today, dealing with Dr. Fauci, and I guess they're going after him now, and what I think is rightly so. They're about his gain of function and what he did with the NIAID and his different charities, or not charities, or different grant money that was coming out there. I think this is all going to, I think that at one point here, something's going to happen that someone's going to have to bite the bullet and is going to take the whole blame for things. And I don't know. This has been such a roller coaster of almost 2 years going on here. And this is never should have happened. I don't think the way here, but everybody can say hindsight is 2020. But the part is that I think a lot of mismanagement has happened there, and I think a lot of government control has taken into steps there to control the population. And now you have to really wonder about we've said this many times on here too, as well, is that once government takes something and puts something into place, it never ever gets removed. It stays there, right? Just like taxes. And it was in 1916 when they brought in taxes to go and says, "Oh, we have to go and help and fund the war," and taxes never went away. Like taxes always happened through time and history and stuff like that, but extra stuff. I talked about this before about fishing licenses. No, yeah, we have to go this to make more money, right? But they don't go away. And that's the crazy thing. And you got to figure about what do you figure there, Marks, about taxes. If like, I talk about this many times there about a cost of a potato, but you pay for the potato, you pay your income tax on the potato for working, you pay tax on the potato that you buy, you you pay taxes on your house to heat up your stove to cook the potato. There's so much taxes that's involved in our lives. There's so little bits there. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. I don't know. It's just what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, we've been taxed for a while, as you say. You earn your money, and of course, first of all, income tax. You go buy your gas, you're taxed on the gas and everything, so you're taxed on your tax. So,
Yeah.
and then now we're even more. I don't know if our taxes are going to go up, but for all these government plans to help local businesses, municipally, provincial businesses, federal business, I get they need help, but who's paying for this now? Like, are we getting extra tax? How are we going to balance the books? How are we going to get out of this deficit?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just worried, as you say, we're getting taxed upon tax now. Even people who lost their job, and I get it because everything was closed down. Now they're collecting money through CERB, and now that we're actually opening up, and some businesses can't even find employees now to work, like the service sector. It's hard to find employees. People have all left, find other jobs. It's, yeah, like we're talking. It's going to be a while before you know people can get back into the workforce and get back to normal, like taxes and people staying home. I don't know. I that's Hopefully it just won't be just more taxes.
Well, that's it. Actually, an actually funny, interesting point there too, right? So, you give people money there to stay at home because government closed down businesses, and that's the government's fault. And I said this day one, and I said this to Laura as well. I said, "You watch. What's going to happen is because the government's giving out money, they have to make money back, and they're going to have outrageous fines." And the fines are outrageous. Like there was a story there of a couple that just came back from one of these third world countries there where they were teaching people how to weld and build homes and stuff like that. And they said, "Hey, look at, we have been out of the country for 6 months. We're just going to go leave the airport and we're going to go home. We're going to quarantine ourselves in our own home." And they said, "Nope, you can't do that. Here's a fine." And I think they ended up being at the end there. This is on Rebel News. If you guys want to check this out there, if you're listening there, uh, it ended up being $12,000 plus for each, the husband and the wife. They're in fines just by trying to get out of the airport because they wanted to go and quarantine in their own home. And this is just the craziness that stuff happens there. And I mentioned this before. It says government doesn't give away anything for free, and they just want to take. And you're looking at insane fines like this. Have you noticed anybody, or if you found anybody that you've known that have gotten a really goofy fine at all there?
Not yet. Haven't known anybody who's actually traveled and had to go into one of those government hotels where you're forced to quarantine before your tests come back or anything or any fines, but which I don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure like people will know they have to. I'm sure they'll abide by the rules, but why forcing people to spend thousands of dollars in a government approved hotel for 2 weeks at these rates,
That's almost like rape.
yeah, come on now. Hey, if they're gonna go home, they'll go home. Most people will go home. They will do the right thing.
Yep.
And even like you were saying before about fines, the only fines that we hear in our area, everybody was open up. You can actually get dental work done where the hygienist is cleaning and polishing your teeth. but yet you can't just go and get a simple haircut.
Yeah.
How is a haircut more dangerous than getting teeth cleaned? And in a couple of these local businesses, all these barbers and the salons all got together and had a rally, and they all forced say we have to open to survive. We can't stay shut any longer. And
Yep.
then, of course, the municipal government came in there and had to shut them down after a couple hours. And I feel for all the hairdressers, salons, tattoo parlors, because to me that they've always had good sanitizing procedures long before the pandemic. So I don't understand that.
Yep. Well, but plus, with you, it says we'll just say that anyways. You do work for the city, and you were able to stay going there anyways. Where a lot of mom and pop organizations there, they were shut down due to government control, and they said, yeah, you can't be open. And that I just thought that was I mentioned this back when this first started. I said this is a bad idea that was going on, and now you look at our economy here in Canada, and a lot of struggling businesses. A lot of people have lost their homes. A lot of people have been kicked out. They couldn't pay their rent because there's no job, right?
Yeah. Like it's the local businesses like being shut down for 18 months. It's sad to see. And then when they do open, they couldn't, their employees now had to find other work anywhere just for them to survive. So now these businesses try to open up. All their employees have found employment elsewhere.
Yeah.
So now they even when they want to open, they might not even be able to open at full capacity because they need to find their workers, which obviously they can't wait around forever. So.
Yep. No, that's exactly right there. Yeah, there was a news report that came out about a month ago there, and a bunch of restaurants. Their staff were making more money on CERB than going into work. So why would you go into work if you're making that? And I think I said this before, is that once the money's coming in there, it says that if you can make money to stay at home and not work, do you think that's an incentive for somebody to go back out there and work? And then you have these businesses that now they have no staff to run things. Like a lot of things that, like if you're looking at restaurants, I guess in a way, is that a lot of them stayed open with delivery stuff, and a lot of delivery services maintained and kept going. But the thing that was really interesting that I found is that the big box stores like Walmart, the government allowed them to stay open. They closed down little areas. Like I didn't understand why you'd block off gardening supplies and seeds and stuff like that it would give you a person to be outside and grow their own food, right? This seemed weird. And they did this in Michigan as well. Can't remember what the governor's name in Michigan was. There, some brunette there, ding dong, but blocking off stuff. And they did the same thing here in Manitoba. The premier there said, okay, well, these are only certain items what we consider essential. Now, who mandates what is essential? Do you know what essential is there, John?
Actually, no, I don't, because essential, what is essential? Yes, food's essential. Now you're going to tape off areas okay, clothing. What happens? You can't even get new clothing at Walmart. What happens if you need underwear and socks? That's essential. Can't have. So, the rules, I guess, because you're trying to support a local clothing store, it's unfair, but essential, what is essential? There you go. Where's the line there? I think clothing's essential, don't you? I can't go buy clothing. I haven't gone shopping in a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, exactly. This was the word that I when the term essential came out, it just blew my mind, and I could not believe that premiers and government people here, just even in Canada, that they determine what is essential. And you're right. It says, well, hey, I got no more pants because my pants are all ripped. I can't buy thread to sew up my pants. So is that essential? Do you want me to walk around naked? I'm going out on the far limb here. And so it's just funny is that people in power, and I think this goes back to this whole thing about this September election that's coming on, that they want to go and drag it out so it goes to the next year, so that they're probably not going to be reelected anyways, but then they're pensioned off for the rest of their life, right? And that's the biggest scam period. Like, we've had so many government scams here in Canada. It's unbelievable, where people in power have duped the system and duped the public, and it's unbelievable. And they want to try and do this again. I don't know. I think this next election their time, I think people really need to go and look and see what did these people do for 18 months? How did they benefit you? What do you think?
Yeah, I get you. I hear you. But the only thing is, looking at the politics coming up, we have him as our leader, our prime minister, but then our other options aren't so great either. That's the thing. Like, so we have three parties. We have our leader who won a minority government but got to stay basically because it was an emergency situation. No one would force an election on him.
Are you talking about Justin Castro there, Fidel Castro's son?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. So he got lucky because he only had a minority government, so he could have been called out for election if the other two parties combined their seats, and we could have had an election. But of course, no one wants an election at these times. So now his term is running out, and then I'm looking at it. I'm not happy at all with Justin. I don't like him at all. But then I also don't like any other option. So I don't even know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm screwed either way. Actually,
maybe I should do this. I'm gonna announce my candidacy there for Prime Minister of Canada. If anybody there wants to help and support me there, then bring me forward. We're gonna just do this all on donations of donuts and coffee and stuff like that. Because that's another crazy thing there too, is that you have to pay to run. It's the same thing in the States. To run for president, you have to have so much money and so many people backing you. And it's the same thing here in Canada, where you just can't just run like school president. Right? It's unbelievable. And it's just, you just see how money orientated and money corrupt government has become. It's unbelievable. Anybody out there, do you want to give an opinion there? Post it in the chat here on StreamYard, and we'll give you a what for anyways. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, right now, like, with everybody hurting, and you know what, an election, of course, is going to be the best time. Like, if all the three parties in Canada can get together, and any donations to the party to help funds for running for an election, why don't we just donate all these funds to help everybody who are hurting at these times? All the organizations, like, help kids get back to sport, help schools improve,
right,
help people get back to, donate the money to real life. We don't need to waste money on funding for
hammers.
Yeah, for for election funding, to fund for this, for his campaign. Campaigning right now is way too expensive at these times. We can't afford to throw money out the window on campaigning.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a good point there. I thought about this before, right? So you have a military, Canadian military, that goes out and does exercises and stuff like that, where they set up camps and stuff like that. Well, we have a whole bunch of missions, reserves and stuff like that don't have clean water. Why don't they just go and set up and do that, put in fresh water, fix the bridge, do this, and then they move on and just use that as a military exercise and move on to the other thing and just leave that stuff behind, right? You got to fix infrastructure. You got to fix the home first. You can't just let the home go into disarray. And it's just so sad the way things are done. And when you look at budgets and stuff like that, where they have to go and meet their budget, or else they don't get their money at the next year, and they're buying $400 lounge chairs for their office and stuff like that. Just that's tax money. That's people's money that the government is taking from you. And nobody seems to go and bat an eye at this. And government seems, hey, this is expected. This is the way it's supposed to go. This happens here in Canada. It happens in the States. It happens in other countries as well. And it's just sort of a really sad thing that nobody really wants to look at and discuss, right?
Yeah, but you got to remember, like, we're the good Canadian. We look at it in our minds like, oh man, we're getting duped, as you could say. But oh well, we're Canadian. What are we gonna do? I
Mm-hmm.
guess we just have to live with it. Nobody ever stands up as a big group. It's we just keep letting the system, screw us over, if you want to say. We never do stand up and fight. It's well, as we're Canadian. Oh well, what are we gonna do?
That's right. They all think that we're dumb Canadians up here that live next door to Newfoundland and Vancouver. We all live on the same lake and the same street.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we got coming up here again there? NFL, what do you got going on with that there? Because you're a big, huge football person there as well.
Yeah, so I was just noticing I was watching a show that's broadcasted. Like, I was watching on TV and they had a few odds coming up about over and under win totals for each of the teams and the early odds on coach and rookie of the year and defensive player of the year and everything. So it's going to be an interesting season because I heard one thing talking about, some teams not really getting along with their other teammates because of the vaccination rates. Some players are fully vaccinated, some are not. So there's infighting there, and then they don't want to be,
touched.
Well, whatever. And then you play in the season, and all of a sudden, that group of players can't play anymore. Like, I thought we were getting through this, but apparently it might come on to the next season. But I'm looking forward to, like, fans now will have full fans back in the stadiums, which you get the atmosphere back in regular football. And everything went good so far in mini camps, and they're starting main camp soon. Mm-hmm. So let's have a good NFL season, and we'll find out if Aaron Rodgers is actually going to stick with Green Bay or leave.
Let's see, that comes into an interesting part there when you're looking at sports, right? Well, we already had hockey, right? So hockey, you're in a cold rink and you have high contact, high speed. Now you have football, whereas there's lots of contact, slow game, right? How much do you actually play during a 60-minute game? Maybe about 4.5 minutes?
Well, you're right. Like, there's some guy looked at it with the 45-second clock. It seems like every snap, they're wasting 40 seconds all the time. They wait to the last second in that time clock to snap the ball. So you're wasting all kinds of time. You got 4 15-minute halves, and you're basically wasting almost 45 seconds of play. So You're actually losing a lot of time there. So to speed up the game, you might want to shorten that 45-second clock.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, this, I guess, just like you said there, it's going to be an interesting part there because now you have in the States you have this ding dong Joe Biden there, Uncle Joe, Sleepy Joe, whatever you want to call him, stuff like that. The DNC, and they're looking at now vaccinating young little kids, but you also look at about in the sports program, like the sports alone brings in a lot of money. You got the basketball, football, baseball, hockey's done now. Golf doesn't matter because you can be as socially distanced as you want because it's an individual, basically a sport. But contact sports and we have the Olympics coming up too, right? That's a big one. And guess where it's going in?
Oh, it's in Japan, and right now it isn't going very well. Japan doesn't even know, all the people in Japan don't want the Olympics.
Right, and then you have this big, huge problem going on there too. This goes a little bit off topic there, people, with Taiwan, and Taiwan asking Japan for help and asking the U.S. for help because if China takes over Taiwan again, they block off a whole shipping route. And this goes into a huge global politics thing, and also with trade of goods and stuff like that. Which is this hasn't been actually really even talked too much on the mainstream media through, and what I'm saying through Europe and the U.S. and barely even in Canada. But a lot of independent stations have been looking at this, And this is actually be a big, huge problem there. If China takes over Taiwan, a huge amount of shipping is going to be regulated and stopped, possibly. And you got to figure that China does produce almost about 90% of all the products that North America gets, besides medicines and personal protective equipment, but computer components and stuff like that. India does a little bit, and there are some other countries that do some stuff, but not as much as what China has there. So there's a nugget for some of you people there to think about there and maybe to check out. What do you think about that there, Oates?
Well, that's one thing that we don't need. We don't need China to have more control over the world than what they already do, because right now it's, they start controlling more of the shipping areas. They, as you say, they produce 90% or whatever.
Yep.
That fact you said, it'll even give them more power, which I don't think they should have. Like we seen the problems earlier this year when one of those ships, one of those container barges was blocking the Suez Canal for a while. What happened and how long it took for everybody to get their orders. And
that was 5 days, and that stopped 45% of the world's shipping there by being blocking off a ship through that the canal there.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. That's what I always say on here too, is that there's so much more outside of your bubble of reality that goes on there, and how many things are connected. And just by that one ship stopping that's 45% of the world's economy stopped.
Yeah, and it sure makes the grocery store more expensive, that's for sure, which we don't need right now.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of things. This is going to be an interesting year, and I'm not going to be all doom and gloom to all you people out there listening there, but I think there's going to be a part there that's going to happen around Christmas time where people that are going to see that maybe getting this shot wasn't a good idea. And that's just an opinion. It's not opinion of the radio station, nothing like that. Just my own. And I'm just going to be interested to see if what happens there, if there's some sort of adverse effects because something was rushed through that wasn't a vaccine, but was a medical experiment. But other than that, I know you got jabbed there twice, there, Abe Oates.
Yeah, I got mine just because I don't believe in it. All I wanted to do was travel, and of course, you needed your. It looked like you need your vaccine passport for me to get to the States. And I wanted to go to Rockfest real bad, but as you say, Mr. Pink Pants there, he screwed me over there by not opening the border in time. So
yeah,
now I'll wait till next year. Hopefully by then I'll be able to go. But
well, that's what it comes down to. It almost sounds like a lot of broken promises, right? And that's where the people that are in power, they go, says, well, you get this done. And then they turn around, they go, you have to jump over this hurdle here. Take another lap around the track there, and maybe we'll think about it now. And we're not sure you're mature enough there to make your own mind up. And that's what it sort of seems to be. And I think we've talked about this lots of times there too. Is on the shows about government is never supposed to be the parent, and they're supposed to make sure that the infrastructure and the country works well. They're not supposed to dictate your life like, and again, I'll use the word communist or some sort of totalitarian regime where they're dictating how you should live. And that's not the way it should ever be. Because I remember, I'm 51 now. It was never like this during my first 30 years. And these last 20 years seem to have government control. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like it's pretty tough. Like what like you want to do what you think is right, but yet now, what is like it's like who tells you what or what can you do? Why did we have a choice in the matter? Why couldn't you make, okay, this is what's happening? It should be your choice. If you want to stay home from work, your choice.
Right.
If you don't want your kids to go to school, your choice. You have the option of in-person learning or staying home and online learning.
Exactly.
It should have been more of a choice. If you think that you're unsafe, well, prove that you're unsafe, stay home. But you should have a right to choose whether or not you can do this or that, whether it's work, sports, school. Like the choices were just basically taken out of the individual's hands here.
Amen there, preach. That's a good one. That's actually that's true. That I believe that totally. It says the whole thing there is that the choice has been removed from the populace and people that are in power, and that's what I said. That it's going to be interesting here come in September if they actually go and push this election over, and I'll be surprised if Justin Castro gets back in again. I don't know. There's been a lot of things there, and plus we got those stupid voting machines that he supports and stuff like that. So there's lots of conspiracy theories that are there, and lots of different things that are going on. So we're getting close to the end of our hour here. I want to thank you very much there, Marty, for joining me. I know you were a little bit hesitant.
Yeah, a little nervous. My debut on the radio.
But other than that, though, it's just me, the Delicious Recipe, on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. and we're on UPRN. I'm not sure if we're on 107.7 anymore, but New Orleans, and I think we're getting growing and getting a little bit bigger. And I want to thank you very much there, Marty, for being a guest on my show.
Right on.
Okay, and I know it was a little bit difficult, and I know I had to twist your arm quite a bit there, but I really appreciate it. And to the rest of you guys out there, everything goes in the pot, and we see how it tastes at the end. Some people will like it, some people may not, but you know what? That's the life. So good night. Let's see if Joe's there. Oh, just me. Hey, Joe. Or maybe it's just me again here. Okay, well, we'll just continue on here while Joe's figuring out what he's doing there. Okay, so next week, no idea. It's just going to be a mix of things. And I just appreciate y'all for tuning in to the Delicious Recipe. And you got Laura Lee with the Angel Rock. She'll probably be on there next week with me. There is a guest, and we'll just be talking about just life. Joe, don't leave me hanging.
Are you still live?
Yeah, it's still live. Okay. So who do you think is going to win the next year's season NHL? I'll put you on here too. Who do you think is in the thing? We'll just keep on going until he kicks us off here.
Well, good question. I think it's I wouldn't surprise me if Tampa Bay does a three-peat. They seem to have all the pieces. So
now, didn't they just now Toronto, didn't they rehire Tavares again?
Well, Tavares, he got hurt. I think he's still on contract, but they did re-sign some of the older players again, Simmons and Spezza, I think.
Okay. So, what do you think that Tampa Bay has? Who do you think is going to be somebody to knock out Tampa Bay? Because there was a bunch of trades that all happened there in the last 4 days here.
Yeah, there's some line. They're all getting ready for the big thing about the expansion draft for the new Seattle Kraken. And then on Friday, we'll have the NHL entry draft. And not too far from that, we'll have free agent frenzy. So a lot going on in the next
So who's going to Seattle?
Well, let's see. I read an article about it, and I don't agree with them all, but one of the big names that they seem to have going there is Vladimir Tarasenko, a big goal scorer from St. Louis.
Yeah.
And all the other big contracts like Carey Price, I think, will stay away because they don't want to, as an expansion team, get close to that salary cap.
Right. So what's the salary cap at? What's it? They're at $350 million.
Well, I don't even know, but it's a hard cap, and it's a lot of the teams are teetering on the edge. That's why you've seen some of the big contracts get exposed for the draft.
Right. So you figure, so that's the only team that's coming in, right? The Seattle, what do they call the Mercenaries?
The Kraken.
The Kraken. Like, who comes up with that name, Kraken?
They're on the, I guess, in the ocean, and that's, well, the Kraken, that's that sea creature there. And
also okay, that's like
that rum.
That's not like a plumber with his pants that are half down his butt.
No, that's not plumber's Kraken.
I see you're Kraken. So, like that? I don't know, who did they absorb from then? Anyways, like this is just a brand new team.
New. They'll draft 30 players, one from each team except from Vegas because they're too new.
Okay.
And then they'll have a roster, and then they'll go from there. I think they have some other deals made out with other teams to say, don't select this guy, select this guy. You could have that guy. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Right. So out of this there, so now that makes what? How many teams? Who do they go into? They go into the East-West team?
They'll be in the Western division, I believe, since they're in Seattle.
Right. So now that puts in what? Because it was all balanced before, right? Wasn't it like 10, 10, and 10?
Yeah, there will actually, now it'll be 32, so it'll be perfectly balanced.
Okay.
Now you'll have 8. You have 8 times, so you'll have 8 teams, 4 divisions for 32.
Don't let people see me in shorts. Are you still live?
Yep, it's still going.
Hello, everybody. Well, because nobody after you, because I usually am. So, yeah, lovely hairdo. Hello. I hope you guys like Marty. He's a pretty cool guy, so I hope you guys are having fun.
Pretty cool guy. Okay, so now we go into 32 teams, okay? So how did Montreal get into the finals then?
Well, because the border was closed, they have to have an all-Canadian division. So there's only 7 Canadian teams. So you had 7 Canadian. And then they kind of regionalized it. So you had 8 teams in the Southwest division, or in the 8 in the Central, 8 in the West. So 8, 8, and 8.
Yep.
So right there, having 7 teams, you're only playing 6 teams. They actually play teams 10 times, the same team.
Okay.
So the way you look at it, so now they have the rule as, of course, since you can't cross borders, so a guaranteed 4 teams would make the playoffs out of the Canadian division.
Right.
So 4 teams in each division, first place, 4th, second place, 3rd. As like I said before, Dallas, who finished 5th in their division, still had more points than Montreal.
Right. That makes no sense.
And also the New York Rangers, who were in the toughest division,
also
had more points than Montreal, but of course finished 5th in their division. So there's, everybody's hero, Montreal, what a story. Like, if you looked at it back in the day, like, yeah, all well and good, and give them credit. They got that far. They beat the teams they had to beat. But in hindsight,
they weren't a team that
they wouldn't have made the playoffs in a normal year.
Right. So now that this comes into this whole point there now, right, about dealing with playoffs. Do you think it should go by points, right? Like if East-West division, if you had 2 good teams in the East division, they should be playing for the playoffs, and they shouldn't be East versus West, right?
In a way, you look at it this year, you had Vegas and Colorado playing in round 2. Yeah. Those are the teams that tied for the President's Trophy, and they're meeting in the second round.
Yeah.
So right there, you're gonna have what people would want a conference final to be. That's played too early. 2 teams knocking each other out, tiring each other out. I think it took a lot out of Vegas to beat Colorado. So when they actually got to Montreal, they might have been a little tired.
Yeah. But that's like I couldn't believe it. I don't know. I didn't even follow hockey that much this year there, but I just couldn't believe that Montreal was in there. And then the whole part of the hype, it's Montreal versus Tampa Bay, Canada versus the States. And I think, was this a Gary Bettman sort of thing there, marketing thing there, lawyer?
Well, it could have been, but at the beginning it was reality. You had to have an all-Canadian division. There was no other choice, but it's, they could have, they could have maybe It's better than the bubble, just put it that way. Last year's playoffs wasn't that fun. Everybody playing in a bubble. This was more reality.
So what would you think about a CFL versus NFL series?
Oh, that would be pretty interesting if you actually played, 2 games of NFL rules and then 2 games with the Canadian football rules.
Well, then you have the AFL and the NFL, right? No, the NFC.
XFL maybe.
Oh, no, okay.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is because no, I'm thinking
Oh,
baseball. I'm thinking baseball. The 2 different things there where the pitchers have to bat and the other part.
Oh
okay,
yeah, baseball. The American League has
Yeah.
the designated hitter, and the
Yeah.
National League, the pitchers
Yeah.
have to bat.
But if you had the CFL versus the NFL, and they play on the 110 yards and they play on the 100 yards,
Yeah.
and then with the
Wider field,
and then
longer end zone.
wider end zone. So who do you think? Who do you think would
12
be?
players versus 11 players.
Yeah, who
You're
do you
able
think?
to move off the snap?
So who do you? Yeah, there you go. So who do you think there would be contender for a Canadian Football League against an NFL team?
Canadian football, you'd have to take, I guess, the defending champion Blue Bombers, but they lost one of their quarterbacks who actually got picked up by an American team. I can't remember I think he was on Kansas City, actually. I can't remember his name. And then, of course, the running game is more, even though there's only 3 downs, running game is still very important in the CFL. So I think you need actually more athleticism in the CFL. It's hard to say.
Oh, geez, did you hear that, the Americans? He's saying Canadian football is more athletic than. Oh, okay. Give your comments there at the bottom there and post them to March.
By the way, I still like the NFL better than the CFL. They're just 2 totally different games, but some of those, it's a bigger field, faster game. It'd be interesting if the NFL would have to adapt the CFL rules and the CFL size of field.
Because who's that big guy that went for not Moody or what's his name there? We went to the CFL, went to the NFL there.
There's Warren Moon.
Example. Yeah.
Yeah, we thought he was
Rocket. There's another one.
Yeah, Rocket Ishmael.
Yeah. Then who was the other guy there that?
There's also Doug Flutie.
Doug Flutie. Yeah, that's the
many
one I was thinking.
years. He had a great CFL season, and everybody loved him in Buffalo after he came to the NFL.
Yeah, he played both different things there. That was sort of an interesting thing there. Oh, geez, my knees are showing. Sorry, there, Scientologists.
Yeah, so that's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
And then.
Okay, so there now. Let's go into this while we're still waiting there on Joe to pick up here. Maybe he's having dinner here. We're still going live. Okay, now who do you think